Arks of Omen, Angron. The plot continues. The Arks of Omen are sweeping across the Imperium, but this book is all about Angron, the Red Angel. And for the first time ever, it takes you inside his mind, his character, and reveals the true reason he can't stop killing. This is Larry from Bowles, and we're here to talk about Arks of Omen, Angron. This is volume 2, so the story continues. We have about a 100-page book, and it's the same general layout as the first one. We have 50 pages of narrative story, continuing what happens in Arks of Omen, and there's a whole bunch of interesting things that we're going to get to in just a second. Obviously, Arks of Omen, Angron, this one's all about Angron. You're going to get to know all kinds of things about him that no one ever knew. There's about 10 pages of pictures and sexy miniatures in the middle of it, and then there's about a 40-page section at the end, a continuation of the boarding actions rules that we saw in volume 1. If you recall what happened in the first book, Abaddon and Vashtor, they get together all these space hulks, they make a bunch of Arks of Omen, and they start scattering them throughout the Imperium, and they have a plan. Grab a whole bunch of special items, and he's going to create something. It's a big mystery. And with that something, he's going to bring the Imperium to its knees. So, of course, Abaddon, he's all over that plan. The Imperium, however, at this point, knows what's up. So they get together a big task force, and that task force is Grey Knights, Sisters of Battle, Astra Militarum, Space Marines, the Imperial Navy. They put together a big fleet. They find what they think is one of the key and most important one of these Arks of Omen, and they're going to stop it cold. This is their master plan, and they're all sitting in this big system in the Maccabell. I'm going to read that. The Maccabell system. And the Maccabell system is special because it has this ancient device called the Coral Engine. This is a huge plot point in this book. What is the Coral Engine? They don't know what the Coral Engine is. The Coral Engine is this weird, crazy space station base thing that's on the planet, and it has roots that go deep, deep into the core of the planet and predates the Imperium. When they man it with psychers and use it, it basically acts like a miniature version of the Astronomicon. When they turn this thing on, the warp recedes. Chaos doesn't do as well. The Imperium starts to retake worlds. They kind of have a good thing going here. It's also totally secret. They don't tell anyone that it exists for obvious reasons, because it would be an obvious target. Unfortunately, Vashtor knows all about it. He tells Abaddon they're going to go straight for this system. A big, giant battle is brewing. On one side, all of these Imperial forces, again, the Inquisition is there, the Grey Knights are there, this is a big deal. They're defending the Coral Engine, and then up against them is one Ark of Omen with a bunch of Chaos dudes on board, some World Eaters, a bunch of demons and whatever. And they think, we got this, no big deal. What nobody planned on, however, Angron has entered the building. Over this huge series of running battles, Angron pretty much just single-handedly kills everybody. There's no stopping Angron. We get over a dozen pages of what Angron is doing, more importantly, what Angron is thinking, and what it's like to be Angron, and that's where the story gets really, really interesting. At the conclusion, the Coral Engine is destroyed, most of the Imperial forces are scattered, and Angron and his world leaders kind of continue their own personal crusades, and Vashtor shows up with his particular Ark of Omen and reaches down, grabs what he really came for, which is, quote, a tank-sized chunk of dark stone that was at the core of the planet. He says, even though he's an immortal power of chaos, not even a demon prince, but an actual minor chaos god, he has no explanation for how this chunk of stone survived for all of the millennia that it's been there, but he gathers it up, walks into his little warp tunnel, and he's gone with his prize. Whatever that thing was, it's bad news, and Vashtor has it. Man, it sucks to be Angron. So one of the first things that Warhammer 40,000 players will tell you is that Angron has a bunch of new rules, and he's really cool, and the World Eater Codex just came out, and one of the big things that Angron, that you can do when you play games of Warhammer 40,000 is you can kind of trade in these blood tithe points, and you can resummon Angron and bring him back onto the table. So you can never really kill Angron. They go into that in detail. So what you find out is that Angron kind of doesn't like his life, and he really wishes that he could just stop being angry all the time. As long as Angron is really, really angry and mad, he basically cannot be killed. And the Imperium in this story kills him multiple times. He's blown up in a million different ways, and then he just goes back to his first-person storytelling, and he's like, and then that las cannon hit me and I'm dead, but I still really want to kill some people and I'm back. And he just instantly kind of reforms, and the killing continues. He gets blown up by anti-personnel weapons. He gets blown up by Titan shooting him. He gets blown up by a spaceship exploding around him. It doesn't matter. As long as sufficiently angry and mad, he will just, several minutes later, come back. Thus, he is trapped in this eternal cycle of he's constantly hacking and slashing his way through the galaxy. He just wishes it could just end and he could finally die. But guess what?
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
That is the existence of what it is to be Angron, is to just constantly be fighting and being killed and reforming somewhere else on the galaxy, maybe 10 feet away, maybe all halfway across the galaxy in an entirely different war zone. That is the existence of being Angron. This is a continuation of what we saw in Volume 1. More and more pages of the boarding action rules, whereas we got the basic boarding action rules and an initial set of missions in Volume 1. Volume 2, now we're getting stratagems that you can use in those missions. We get stratagems for World Eaters, Chaos Space Marines, Grey Knights, Space Marines, Astra Militarum, and Orks, strangely enough. You'll note that there's a whole lot of armies that aren't in there. What this tells me is that we're going to see this pattern continue, and I would not in any way be surprised if this is going to be the theme of Arks of Omen, and that in future books we're going to continue to see more and more rules about this now very hefty set of rules for playing boarding actions in Warhammer 40,000. We also get 6 more missions that are specifically theme missions that are taking place during the campaign. Obviously, the boarding action and all the critical battles in the Coral engine are included in those rules. If you are a giant 40k lore expert, you need to be all over this, because again, there's 50 pages of lore. So now we have 100 pages telling this big story of this big campaign. This one definitely feels like it's shaping up to be as big of a deal as Psychic Awakening or the Arrival of the Great Rift. They're clearly hinting that something big and massive is going to happen. You want all the details off that. Also, huge amount of information about Angron, his psychology, how he works, what it is to be not only a Daemon Prince, but a worshiper of Khorne, kind of in detail. So there's a lot of the psychology, a lot of really, really good stuff all about Angron in this book. The second group of people who should buy this book is if you are into these boarding action rules. So if you've seen all the cool Games Workshop boarding action terrain, you have any interest in running small games, medium games, narrative games, match play, open play, whatever, that have to deal with dudes fighting, in spaceships and underground, these rules build directly on the basic ones. So now we're getting stratagems. I expect this to continue. By the time this series is done, I'm sure we will have stratagems and special rules for every faction in the game. So that's Arks of Omen, Volume 2, Angron. Check out our review of Part 1 here. Check out all of our normal 40k content right around here. I'm Larry from Bowles. Thanks for watching, and as always, skulls for the Skull Throne.